You've tuned into the Bellingham Podcast for the week of February 27, 2022. This is episode 206.
Nice area code.
From that city that doesn't have a 206 area code, I'm AJ Barcet.
And straight out of 98226, I am Chris Powell. On this episode, we're going back to school, y'all. I brought my pencil. Give me something to write on, man. We're going to talk about the adventure life in a classroom format. All that and more next on the Bellingham Podcast.
School's out for trekking. Hey, Chris. Hey, Chris. I am not caffeinated for the record.
We've got a sponsor later on in the show, but AJ's intro is brought to you by the amphetamines of and the caffeines of... No. What are you drinking?
No caffeine?
Seriously, what are you drinking?
Oh, okay. Actually, so I've got... I thought I've showed you this before. It's called GT's Alive. So it's... Okay, I jokingly call it... It's mushroom water.
Go to sleep?
No. So it's root beer.
Grand Theft...
Grand Theft Mushroom.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So no, it's a. I stumbled on this by accident because I like root beer, but I don't do traditional root beer with high fructose corn syrup and stuff. So anyway, I found this, and it's actually a root beer made with reishi, chaga, and turkey tail mushrooms.
That's a great password.
Yeah, right. That especially, yeah. So anyway, no. So I jokingly call it's mushroom water that it tastes like root beer, but it's healthy for you.
Okay, and where would someone acquire this?
The Hagen Co-op. It's a thing.
Any of your local healthier grocery store establishments with the fizz to go along with it.
Totally.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, I'm drinking green gunpowder tea, so let's shoot our mouths off a little bit and get into this episode. This could be, dear listener, a multi-part series because here's why. Recently, on the last episode, we made comment about a presentation AJ was making at the Whatcom Museum, the Bellingham Old City Hall.
Yeah, big red building.
The big red building. And I attended that. And if you were there among the throng, then you would have seen my ugly face with a mask on. But AJ did a fabulous travelogue on traveling and trekking with a toddler. And check out the Substack because there's more information there. But as I'm listening to him talk, which was highly informative and a great look into the world of AJ Barcet, my podcast partner in crime, he talked about one particular item in general during the COVID era when life brought lemons falling from the sky. These are contagious COVID lemons, of course. You get a little bit of a mixer and you make some lemonade in some cases. Lemon drop if you're a fan. Shaken, not stirred. And you came up with this way to be able to engage with your little called Adventurgogy.
Yeah.
Which is a combination of adventure, plus pedagogy, which is the teaching. Mm-hmm. I know my Greek and Latin roots. But you made some curriculum for the outside.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, by cracky, we got to talk about this on the show because there's a lot of people that want to get the heck out, especially now that the weather is getting a little bit more sunnier.
With some snow.
With some snow, as we're recording. But the weather temperatures are warming up and people want to get out of the house and the thing. Here's the 101 course guide to adventure classroom.
So when the whole premise of the travel log was a buildup of everything that most people have listened to the show for the last 5.5 years know about me and my little and stuff. But the thing was, during the pandemic, a lot of fellow parents were always asking like, "Oh, what are you and your son doing these days?" And so, I talk about this adventure, that adventure, or this hike or that hike, and I always got the same thing where, "Whoa, he did that? Yeah, it's sitting up on top of the oyster dome. Oh, whoa, that." And it was funny because I've always said like it's just. I'm raising a little mountain goat. That's who I am. That's how we are as a family.
He's a cute little mountain goat, but yes.
Yeah, he's a very cute
He's going to be a bringer of the destruction mountain goat when the time comes, because I know this little, and he's a heck of a character.
Yeah. So when my background in education, it was funny because I studied pedagogy in my bachelor's, andragogy, the study of adult learning and teaching, in my master's. And jokingly, I just told myself, well, now as I'm reaching my 40th birthday.
Oh dear.
As I'm coming into my 40s, well, I must be clearly teaching my son, Adventurgogy. And so it just kind of stuck. And I didn't have anywhere to put it. Didn't really fit here in the show or anywhere else until this travel log came out so that I could, put it to use. Funny enough, like if you Google Adventurgogy, it doesn't nobody's usually has used that term. So it's kind of a unique, I think it's a unique thing.
I'm thinking you better hop on Namecheap.
Sure. And so here's a bit of a backstory, okay?
This is the 99.
Here's the 99.
Adventurgogy 099.
So in the Pacific Northwest, we obviously are predominantly a culture of people who like to be outside and stuff. But what do you start with? There, as we've talked on the show, like if you're more of an urban dweller, there is trepidation of going on the trails. There's lots of people that are uncomfortable because of the unknown, because they do not know where they're at, or they don't have a sense of place. And these are all things that I've seen in youths growing up that I wanted to make sure my son had. No matter where in the world that he goes off to, I want him to have this core essence of being a Cascadian. That was the crux of my discussing about how I identify myself.
Ich bin ein Cascadian.
Yes.
Sounds
yeah,
good.
Good.
Yes.
So to be a Cascadian and having that sense of place and having basic wilderness skills instilled at an early age and having that bridge into both life skills and cognitive skills. We say as parents that we want to have critical thinkers. We want to have children that are resilient. Well, when you're 5, they have no concept of what that means. And a lot of the times, and this isn't a knock against parents, we all parent different ways, but a lot of the times when I talk to other parents, they have their teen or whatever, and then they start introducing these topics, how to teach them to, quote, adult. Why not just do baby steps along the way? And get
them started early.
Yeah. And so that was kind of the impetus of, again, my background as a teacher was like bridging something that is fun and I'm passionate about, but building in life skills. So it all started when he was 3 and we ascended the Oyster Dome.
Okay.
And, as I said jokingly in the travel log, like the Oyster Dome is not, we did the Oyster Dome.
Yes, but I'm 8 times body weight heavier than your little. And so that was a bit of a challenge for me compared. How did he do in ascending?
Yeah. So it was an all day thing, and everybody passed us and that was fine. Mm-hmm. I didn't care because when he got to the top, everybody started applauding because here's a little that ascended, and he just, was just out with dad. But in and amongst the hours that it took to ascend and descend the Oyster Dome, that's where the real start of this whole Adventurgogy kind of came in. And he had not really been on a big trail or a quote, I'm not saying that the Oyster Dome is a big mountain, but to the scope of a 3 going on 4-year-old, the Oyster Dome is a big mountain.
As they say in the Northeast, the Oyster Dome is huge.
It's huge. So I had to figure out a way to start off with, okay, what are some basics just to, one, manage him and still keep him interested and still teach him. And so I jokingly just said, okay, buddy, we got to come up, you got to follow the mountain rules if you want to be out here with
mountain
Dada.
Rules. This was what initially triggered my thought for this show.
Bingo.
Hit it.
So rule number 1, always listen to Dada.
That's, okay. Well, always listen to AJ in general.
Well, so, and this is also Dada/mama, but
right.
Mom's usually at home reading and studying for exams.
But there are some mamas that are doing the whole trail blazing. So
but the impetus is, again, you want your little to listen to your parents, right? So rule number 1, listen to your Dada. Number 2, we'd never goof around.
Of course not.
Because especially on a mountain, when you goof around, as you get bigger, that's when accidents happen. You break things or potentially die on a mountain.
And the only time you goof around is on a podcast.
Exactly.
That's right.
Rule number 3, always pay attention.
What?
Always pay attention.
What?
Always pay up. So
there you go.
This one comes from the fact that when you're out in the wilderness, you have to, this is situational awareness. You're teaching them to be aware of not just their own body, but also critters, because when we're out in the wilderness, we're out in somebody else's house, not ours. And those with 4 legs and claws are going to win.
Different adventures in the urban realm versus the nature realm.
Exactly. So paying attention also to weather. What does that mean? What does that look like? My son knows to keep an eye out. If the wind starts blowing, look for clouds. Why? Because there might be a storm coming in. And from age 3 to 5, as soon as there's wind and we're on a mountain, we better hurry. There's a storm coming. Now, there may not be a storm coming, but that's something that he innately knows. And I want him to have those reflexes.
All right.
Even if there is no storm coming, it tells me he's thinking.
Yep.
Rule number 4, be careful. That goes without saying. Now, that's different than never goof around, because being careful is also being prepared. There's a lot that goes into being careful, both forethought and being active.
It's one thing to say take care,
Right.
versus see you later, goof.
Exactly.
Right.
And then number 5, because the whole premise of mountain rules, you get one rule for every year you're alive.
All right.
So that's why he's 5. So there's 5. Tune in next year. He'll get number 6. But
hey, what, tell number 5, then let's get a sneak peek for number 6.
okay, well, I won't leak it yet.
All right, fine.
He does listen to the show. Okay.
Hey, little.
So number 5, and because he's 5 now, this was an important one because he actually did his first big mountain. We climbed Winchester, which is about 6,500 feet with several thousand feet of elevation gain. And that was his big summit last season. So number 5 was you only go as far as you can get back.
Say that one more time, because that's very important for all people heading out.
Yeah. Only go as far as you know that you can get back.
All right.
Because and I said this in the travel log.
Don't pull a Frodo.
Yes. No, any alpinist or mountaineer will tell you, summiting is optional. Okay. Getting back home is mandatory. Okay. And to put this in a perspective of the lens of someone who is 5, you only go as far as you know that you can walk yourself back, or that you can pack yourself out, or what if something happens? How are you going to get back? That is the whole premise of it. And if that could be for physical fatigue, it could be, oh shoot, we don't have enough snacks. Well, blow it off, go back. It goes back to, again, being careful and always paying attention. They all stack. It's a spiraling curriculum.
Those are the foundational 5.
Correct. So that's the mountain rules. And it's funny because, and I share this freely because, like, anybody who has met my son or met me and, they hear the story, I always pass those mountain rules, because more and more parents want to know that, because, oh, I want to try it. Those are great. Let me use them. Cool. It's basically Creative Commons, folks. Like, here you go.
That's the how. As you're going out on an adventure. Let's talk about the where.
Okay. So obviously, because we're the Bellingham podcast, we're going to start right here in our backyard.
As well we should.
Well, and that's why I started. That's also where I started with him as well. I did not, when I threw up the picture of him sitting on the Oyster Dome, which got recognized in Essence of Bellingham 2 years ago, I think. Like I said, I didn't just pick one weekend, like, yep, we're going to go up the Oyster Dome today. No, this is something where we started just walking around the block. And walking around the block went walking around the parks. Walking around the parks went to the Interurban Trail.
Yep.
And then from there I took him out. So if you're already starting, let's start with urban hiking, okay?
Let's start with someone who may not have been able to consider the Oyster Dome.
Right.
Kind of like me before I met you.
Right.
But you're familiar with doing some mall walking or some long parking lots from the back of Costco into the main
All the way in.
entrance.
Yep.
Where would someone start?
So for here in Bellingham, the Interurban Trail, just pick a point, and I actually shared this with you a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Is because I just got my truck fixed, right? So I drove my truck down to Toyota, okay, dropped it off, and I walked back home.
Sure.
And I shared you that map, and you're like, whoa, that's cool. And that's what I would encourage you to do, just like you were saying with Costco. Here in Bellingham, we have the benefit of the Interurban and the Railroad Trail and the Northridge Trail. Wherever you live, if you live in the Bellingham or suburban area of Bellingham, the next time you have to have a big service on a vehicle, or if you're going to go get groceries or whatever, bike or walk to or from that place.
Yeah.
Just start halfway.
My wife does something which is rather interesting. She has a friend that they will go walking together. Yeah. Park at a location. Walk to another location where the other's car is at.
Exactly.
So, for example, from our house, there is a particular trail that's about 3 miles away. They'll both drive, come pick her up at our home, go up to that trail, take one car, walk back to our home in her car, drives her back.
Yep.
And then what a great time.
Yep, exactly. And that way you're doing half the distance. It's conditioning, because you'll get to the point where you just start from your house, go and come back.
Yep.
From there, and like I said, that's the Interurban Trail, the Railroad Trail, and the Northridge Trail if you're out here in the Tweed 20 area. If you want to take it one step further, go out to Semiahmoo, and you have to help me because I can't remember the name of there's actually a trail system at Semiahmoo where you basically park at the beginning where it's like, welcome to Semiahmoo. You park there and you can walk the entire point all the way around.
It's around Drayton Harbor.
Yeah.
And we don't know the name of it because we're knuckleheads, but I think the first parking lot you see as you kind of descend into the beauty that is the Semiahmoo spit, if you will, overlooking White Rock.
Yep.
Park and just start walking. You'll see the signs.
Yeah, I think I want to say it's called like the Centennial Trail or Continental Trail or something like that. But what's great about that is you have a wonderful view. 2, it's both paved and you can go out on the beach and stuff. You're not, especially for those that are up in years, or maybe you're young and you didn't take care of your knees because you played too much football. Starting with even ground is an important thing, but getting yourself acclimated. So I would start there. The other thing, if you have littles, going back to if you have a little, incorporate geocaching.
Ah, yes.
So geocaching is a free service that uses your phone's GPS, and there's these riddles and waypoints on a map it's all communities developed, and you have to find these little treasures, and when you do, you log it, you sign a little thing, you stick it back and hide it for the next person. And this does a couple of things. One, it introduces mapping, directions. So my 5-year-old can tell you north, south, east, west, and where everything is, such as, Mount Baker is to the east. That's where the snow lives.
Oh, yes.
West is where the sun sets, and that's where the water is. Like, he knows this at an early age. So those are 2 elements of just getting yourself started in hiking, is just get off the couch and start walking, okay, and getting out.
There you go.
From there, you might want to introduce like the flora and fauna of the Pacific Northwest. And it always surprises me when I talk to people who have lived here all their life and they still don't know what stinging nettle looks like. And they'll just
what was that?
Stinging nettle.
Stinging nettle.
Oh yeah,
That was actually one of my buddies in high school. He played catcher on the baseball team. He's now serving in Nickel Upstate. Anyway, stinging nettle. That was his nickname.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
No, so stinging nettle is this big broadleaf thing that you see on the trails and stuff, and you'll know it when you see it if you touch it, because you'll start getting hives immediately, and it's white hot feeling and stuff. And it's also from our First Nations people, it's also a medicinal tea that you can make when it's in season. But the stinging part, if you have a little, man, you don't want to see a kid touch stinging nettle. They'll draw back a totally plump hand.
Yeah, that's not
so taking a walk around the Stimson Nature Reserve so that you can identify things, even things that aren't potentially hazardous to your little, but pointing out what's the difference between a cedar and a Doug fir, introducing some of that natural sciences.
And by the way, here's a link in the Substack notes. Educate thyself, parent, as you take your kid out, because you'll be able to become familiarized, not just to share with them. You'll actually learn for yourself.
Yes.
What the difference between a deciduous and a coniferous tree can be, and other things like that.
Exactly. And it's just, again, it comes back to the always pay attention. You're paying attention to what's around you and being cognizant. So that's your flora and fauna route. And then if you're looking for an intro into just beginning forest trail hiking, I wouldn't say tackle the Oyster Dome, because there's a bunch of switchbacks on the bottom. I would say go out a little bit closer here to Bellingham. Go to Lookout Mountain, like if you're heading towards Sudden Valley.
Sun Valley, okay.
And there's I can't remember what gate it's at, but in between Bellingham and Sudden Valley, there's Lookout Mountain, and basically you just park. There's a bit of a steep climb to start, but it's all even trail, and there is a waterfall up there. Just hike up to the vista. It's a nice little vista. You get your Instagram post and come back down to your car.
Get something under your belt.
Exactly.
Before you hit the big Oyster Dome. Take it from me. Also, one thing that you can take from me is the awesomeness that is 102.3 FM KMRE radio.
They are low powered, but they are streaming worldwide on KMRE.org.
That's right. And AJ, I want to pause for this class. We need to take a little bit of a bathroom break / recess. We have a new sponsor to the Bellingham podcast family.
Excellent. Who is it this time, Chris?
Friends, you might have heard about the latest craze that's sweeping the nation. It's called, and I'm using air quotes here, social media.
Oh, interesting.
All the kids are using it on the internets, and some grown-ups have tried it out as well. See, many people are finding out that this social media phenomenon is a great way to comment on people's posts, as the kids like to call it nowadays. Fun fact, AJ, a lot of these comments and reactions people make to someone sharing an opinion or belief are not that nice in nature.
Oh, man.
Not quite naughty by nature, high 90s rap, but they're not nice. And in some cases, they're rather insulting to the person sharing with others.
Oh, not nice.
The kids call this not nice response dunking on someone.
Dunking?
In the newfangled social media. Now, I'm not talking about Dr. J, Julius Erving, throwing down the basketball against Kurt Rambis in the 1982 NBA Finals.
Of course not.
And I'm not talking about the fine, wholesome national chain Dunkin' Donuts. Some people on social media have made it a game to dunk on others all over the internet.
Those trolls.
Well, guess what, AJ? Speaking of trolls, our new sponsor, the fine folks at Troll Games, have taken this toxic, hurtful online response and brought it home with their new board game that's destined to sweep the nation. It's called Dunkin' Dozens. They combine the popular insults of the 80s and 90s called dozens, a slang term for put downs and insults targeting family members, and unleashed it for the roaring 20s, this decade we're in right now. Here's how Dunkin' Dozens works. You can have 4 to 8 players, or each player has to accumulate 50 points. To earn points, you have to pick a random number card equal to the number of players in the game. So if there are 4 of us, 1, 2, 3, 4. You pick a number out of the pile at random. Then you choose one of the 3 types of dozens: a family or friend in your life, a belief, or an achievement. Once you choose the player's number card, you can choose which dozen to share. You then have 10 seconds to make a disparaging or insulting comment towards that player. The meaner, the better.
Oh, man.
Let's say you and I, AJ, are playing Dunkin' Dozens with our wives. Now, I happen to pick your number, and I would, for example, choose a belief. What I know about you after the 5.5 years on this podcast, I know you believe that the mountain doesn't care. I would then say for my dozen, AJ, the mountain doesn't care about you because you're a poopy pants who has bad breath. The other players would then award 1 to 5 points based on how mean my dozen dunked on you.
Wow.
Now, not going to lie, that dozen was pretty mean. So I'm sure my beautiful wife would naturally give me 5 points if she knows what's good for her. And your lovely wife would give me 5 points because she's generally awesome. So that's 10 points for me. When it's your turn, you might pick my player card, choose an achievement of mine, and say, Chris, the only reason you volunteer for nonprofits in Bellingham is because you're a wishy-washy wimp wuss who cares about people more than the economic strength gained for-profit businesses in Bellingham. I'm sure you'd get a lot of points for that, if not a black eye.
I'd have to duck.
With Dunkin' Dozens, the comfort one gets in besmirching a stranger with insulting stereotypical slander on social media from the comfort of their own home is taken to the next level. Now you can insult people while they're in the same room as you. What an opportunity. All those times you thought less of a significant other's beliefs or idiosyncrasies can get you points towards victory. And that victory, Bellingham podcast listener, is that much sweeter once you see the reaction your callous, marginalizing, hurtful words have on the person whom you're directing them at. With Dunkin' Dozens, no one really is a winner. Everyone is hurt, ashamed, dejected, and saddened by your opponent's meanness. Our thanks to our friends at Troll Games and their new board game, Dunkin' Dozens, cathartic fun for the whole family, for sponsoring this episode of the Bellingham Podcast. To learn more, visit thenewshiny.org. And don't forget to check out our previous Bellingham Podcast sponsors, Megaphone with an F, Auto Flipper, and Pronto Shop. Call area code 248-434-5508 to learn more. And now, class is back in session.
Okay, Chris, take your chair. Make sure you put your books away. So, what we're gonna to kind of wrap up the ending of this part of 101, I want to talk about kit. Gear. Sorry,
the stuff to bring with you.
Right. So something that I struggled with when we started getting my son into hiking is there's not a lot of options when they're 3 or so for boots or backpacks, because you don't want them to have bigger things on them because they're going to develop belt blisters or
It'll weigh them down.
Yeah, so I have a recommendation if you for a small framed backpack. It's made at REI. Canadian neighbors, you probably look at the mech. They probably have the same thing.
There you go.
And it's called the Tarn 18.
Tarnation.
Comes in a wide range of colors: yellow, blue, red. Sorry, Chris, no black.
Ow!
But high vis, because you want to have high visibility on your kiddo when you're on trail.
Yep.
But this is a smaller framed width size backpack so that they can haul stuff. They're developing the skills of carrying their own kit. But it's not huge like you see some school bags where they flop around as they run to the bus. And it has a sternum strap and stuff, and it's reasonably priced.
Cool.
The other thing I would encourage you is get them a trekking pole or 2. It's a couple of, and for my son, it was something he had to earn.
Oh,
because again,
okay.
this is something when you're trying to teach them and encourage them to go to places, having an incentive, whether that is you get a snack if you summit, or for him, he wanted to go on a really big hike with me because he wanted to have my trekking poles.
Oh.
So I told him if he completed it, this one big hike that we did, then he's earned it. And so we found a trekking pole at a garage sale. He bought it.
All right.
And it's his. That way he's taking care of his kit.
This is an achievement personified.
Correct. And it's his. So I would throw that out. Also, another thing that I tried, which was an accident when we were climbing Mount Erie, which is over in Fidalgo, Anacortes area. I was using Maps.me, and I put a pin at the top so that he could see how far he was going. When you do that, there is a flag icon. He almost broke down in tears when we finally summited because he was expecting a flag.
Oh,
to raise a flag.
Yeah.
So after he had some, after he calmed down and stuff, and he was still happy afterwards, but he was expecting a flag. I packed a Bellingham city flag with me.
There you go.
So every time we summit, he's earned his flag.
Yep.
So think of incentives. The other essentials are pack water for you and your little.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's something that gets overlooked by some parents. Snacks. I already talked about a map or a GPS thing like a Garmin or your phone. Bring a manual compass.
Okay.
So that they start understanding north, south, east, west, and have them hold it flat and have them tell you what direction you're going. And then also bring a watch. I don't care if it's if it's quartz or mechanical. I don't care, but mark the time. Because again, your little is going to take a lot longer than you will to go on any of these, and have them carry a watch or have them look at your watch, especially if it's an analog one, because you're teaching them time at an early age.
Well, that was the analog side of things. What about the digital side of gear? Because there always has to be digital in our gear.
Sure. I mean, having either a GPS or a phone. The other thing I always encourage most parents is get them a digital camera, a legitimate camera.
Okay.
I don't care if it's a toy one or whatever, but one that takes like 2 megapixels. I don't care, but it has real buttons and it's not app driven. And have them start taking pictures. And then when you get back, have them show you what they've taken. So you're seeing their point of view and what they thought was worth taking a picture. Now, most of them are going to look like a 3-year-old took a picture, but it's something that it's a skill. You're showing them photography and they're working with a real quote unquote camera.
And something that you're going to stick up on the refrigerator to remind them of what a great time that was from their perspective.
Now, outside of that, for you as the parent, some digital kit for you, and I've got a link in the Substack. There's a couple of apps that I've mentioned across many episodes of our show, but I want to highlight them all in one place. Seek. If you don't know what a lot of the flora and fauna is around here, Seek is your next best friend because it works on your iPhone or Android phone. You take a picture of a plant, and it will tell you kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species of the plant. And that way you can be like, oh, this white mushroom that I've always seen. Oh, this is an ink cap mushroom. You get to, you yourself get more awareness of the nature that is around you here in the Pacific Northwest. If your kiddos like mine and they like birds, Merlin, which is produced by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, it can help you identify birds and bird calls. Okay. So if you're birding, say at Semiahmoo, because that's a popular place, that's a good place. Relive. I've said this before on the show. Like if you've got a GPS tracker, it basically collects your GPX data and then it plays it back in a video and attaches photos of the time that you were on the trail. It's really great to relive.
This was something that was a eyebrow raising cool factor in your presentation. Folks, when you are clicking on that 2-hour presentation of AJ's, you'll see Relive in action. It's highly impressive for what you can do on a trail or some kind of excursion to be able to see and capture those moments. That's going to be something that you're going to cherish for quite some time. Yeah,
shout out to Danny at Rising Sun Sailor, because
we always shout out to Danny, and he deserves it.
He does, because we were climbing a mountain and he loaded it up, and I was really impressed with it. So the other things are, like I mentioned before, geocaching, which is just great for urban exploration here. And then Maps.me, something that's an offline mapping tool, or carry an analog map of the trail maps that you're going to.
Not a bad idea. That can get them a different kind of skill set.
Orienteering.
Versus,
But and I plan on doing that more with my son when he's a little bit older. It's easier for him to understand a map because I can zoom out, zoom in. And again, he's 5. A bigger map, it's coming soon. And then I'm in the Garmin ecosystem. I love Garmin Explore. because, and you can use it, I think, without a Garmin device. If you have GPX data, that global positioning exchange data files that most everything produces, you can upload it into Garmin Explore, and that can be your log, your trekking log of all the maps that you've collected.
Hiker's log, start date 2022.
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where whenever we travel or we trek, my son, another achievement that he loves is that he collects the map that he has made. It's a treasure for him. So now we have all of these, routes that we've taken as father and son, which is cool.
Excellent.
So that concludes class, Chris, for Adventurgogy 101.
I think I heard the alarm bell sound. I think class is dismissed for this episode, but I believe on our next episode we're going to continue the lesson.
Yep.
With a 201 level.
But first, pop quiz.
Oh.
What is Professor AJ's favorite favorite segment in a show?
The Dunkin' Dozens?
No, quality assurance.
Oh, quality assurance. Yes. Okay. So now that we're waiting for the bus to take us home, what's your favorite, or what is this episode's quality assurance picked by you, AJ Barce?
Thank you, Chris Powell. So, I did the trial of Disney Plus.
Oh,
and there's the show that's on there with none other than Will Smith.
Fresh Prince.
So he has this, and it's great because if you're a kid of the 90s, you'll love the reference. Welcome to Earth.
Okay.
If you remember Independence Day, and he punches the Welcome to Earth. So he, as an actor, is going out and learning from real life explorers and the skills, hence why it dovetails into 101 today. Yep. And the skills that they have or you need to develop to be a real life explorer. And what's interesting is there's an episode, and I don't have the link here, but he went out with a black explorer in like polar conditions and stuff. He is sussing out these explorers that are probably lesser known to folks.
Good.
And this is brought, I think, sponsored in part by, I think, National Geographic is producing the show. But it's a really cool series. And Will Smith being an actor, he's not he's in good shape, but he is not like necessarily mountain fit. And you can tell he's speaking as someone who is learning on the spot.
Absolutely.
And that is really refreshing to see.
Sure.
And it's also refreshing to see multiple points of view in the exploring community, which I appreciate.
Very cool. My quality assurance, it happened this week again. And last episode, I think we might have talked about in quality assurance some of the information diets that we have available to us in Bellingham and Whatcom County. I want to give another shout out to whatcom-news.com.
Preach!
Now, what I'm finding is when you go to this website, there's almost up to the minute or up to the hour news posted on this website.
Breaking news.
I checked one evening at 6 p.m. when I got home from the gym, and I'm just flipping through some news while dinner's cooking. And I happened to notice that something at 5 o'clock, it was posted at 5 o'clock that there was an unfortunate rollover accident on Interstate 5.
Ooh.
But I'm looking at it and it was like 5 p.m., 1 hour ago, and it made this website. I looked on other news websites in Bellingham and Whatcom County. Didn't check Cascadia Daily though. But anyway, the other sites with paywalls did not have anything about that. So at least from an online website to be able to see what's going on in Whatcom County, whatcom-news.com, it is quality from what I'm seeing so far.
That's cool. That's
all
really
right.
Cool.
Let's end class for this podcast episode.
Cool. Pack up all your bags, and that wraps up this edition of the Bellingham Podcast. Thank you again so much for listening to us, rating us, reviewing us, wherever you like to get our podcast. Remember, if you are in the Bellingham area, you might be listening to us on KMRE 102.3 FM.
They are community powered because we're all about community. We are family. I got my podcast partner and me, and they're streaming worldwide on kmre.org.
And on that note,
that funky note.
Ooh, that funky note.
Yeah.
I'm AJ Barce.
And I'm Chris Powell. We'll see you next time on the Bellingham Podcast.
Dude, did you hear that Daft Punk did a live stream of like one of their first concerts
really?
on Twitch
a
couple days ago? Yeah, blew up, and it was a live, like they did a live thing on Twitch. You can't watch it unless you saw it when they aired it.
That is like implied urgency.
It was.
Oh, that's pretty cool.